Hey everybody, I wanted to go over these 23 executive orders that Obama just signed, and what I want to do is just kind of point you into a different perspective on viewing these, because of course the news is reporting that hey, he didn't violate any of the areas of the Constitution, and therefore it's completely okay. But there is something to keep your eye out for, which always seems to happen in these kind of situations. And you know how I've always pointed out gradualism to you guys, and it's really something to pay attention to, because what they do is they put things in place where they use them as stepping stones. And this is kind of the way everything has happened ever since 9/11. Everybody's rights have been whittled away little bit by little bit. But in these 23 executive orders, what you notice when you read these things, and I'll provide a link to you, is that there are a lot of them that are geared towards mental health. Now, on the surface of that, it sounds great, because obviously we don't want to have complete loons having guns. But of course, the problem with it is there exists a very big gray area as to when somebody is considered mentally ill or they cannot have a gun. Now, there's 23 orders. Let's just read a few of these here. Number 2, address unnecessary legal barriers, particularly relating to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, that may prevent states from making information available to the background check system. Another key one here, number 4, direct the Attorney General to review categories of individuals prohibited from having a gun to make sure dangerous people are not slipping through the cracks. Very gray area word there. It doesn't specify anything. Dangerous could be encompassing whoever they consider dangerous. And now we know everybody is considered a terrorist, basically. So I guess anybody could be considered dangerous. You can see where this is going. Number 14, this is another key one. Issue a presidential memorandum directing the Center for Disease Control to research the causes and prevention of gun violence. Number 17, another key one. Release a letter to healthcare providers clarifying that no federal law prohibits them from reporting threats of violence to law enforcement authorities. So why is it that healthcare providers would be reporting threats of violence to law enforcement authorities unless they're being asked to spy on people and ask them prying questions that would get them to somehow determine that these are threats of violence to law enforcement authorities? I mean, don't you think that's kind of an odd thing to put there on number 17? Anyway, release a letter to state health officials clarifying the scope of mental health services that Medicaid plans must cover. Finalize regulations clarifying essential health benefits and parity requirements and ACA exchanges. Commit to finalizing mental health parity regulations. There are a lot of things in here, including getting doctors to spy on their patients. The idea that we do not want mentally unhealthy people having guns sounds excellent on the surface. The problem is that it's going to be abused. It's going to be abused much like we see the whole terrorist watch list abused. This document right here is basically 27 documents, and it contains the suspicious activities that can be that can put somebody on a watch list. And as we know, the watch list, there's now millions of people on the watch list. So basically, the gray area of the mental health situation will basically be the same thing as these terrorist watch lists. And just to remind you of how they abuse this kind of thing, there's 27 of these documents. They relate to different industries. We have airport services, we have beauty supplies, we have bulk fuel distributors, construction sites, dive boat shops, electronic stores, farm supply stores, financial institution, aviation airports. This is for the general public right here. And one of them says, unusual activity is if people are acting suspiciously. It's not defined, so that means anybody could be somebody who is suspicious. We have things such as hobby shops. And one of the way that you can be considered suspicious at a hobby shop is if you demonstrate no interest or enthusiasm for the hobby or sport. That makes you suspicious. Of course, in internet cafes, if you buy coffee with cash, that makes you suspicious. Or if you drive an, quote, illogical distance to the coffee shop or internet cafe, that also makes you suspicious. So what's going to happen here, basically, is it sounds wonderful on the surface, but they're going to actually use this to classify people that shouldn't be as mentally ill. So if you're not on the terrorist watch list, then you'll be mentally ill, or you shouldn't have a gun because of some ridiculous reason where somebody classified you as either being suspicious or mentally ill, and the next thing you know, and I believe one of them is considered operational defiant disorder, ODD, where if you do not, in other words, if you do not like authority for one reason, or you express dissidence towards authority, that's a medical condition. It's actually inside one of the classifications for being mentally ill. So if you're dissident or do not agree with authority, then that classifies you as mentally ill, and you won't be able to have a gun. And check out this real quick.
The states need clearer guidelines on who should be on the list.
We all have different definitions of mental illness. We all have different definitions of inpatient treatment or institutionalization. And we need to get those all on the same track.
Right. And so what's going to happen is, if you can imagine that there's this comprehensive list out there that I'm sure will grow and grow. It will be just the most minute things. And it'll put you in the category of being not mentally healthy for whatever reason, and you won't be able to have a gun. And this is how it's going to be abused. So, like I said, it's one of those things that sounds wonderful on the surface, but the question is what defines somebody as, quote, dangerous? What defines somebody as, quote, suspicious, as we've seen with these FBI watch lists, where there's now millions of people on the watch list? And what defines somebody as, quote, mentally unhealthy? You got to remember that these doctors, they get kickbacks by prescribing medication. They get, there's no telling what the CDC is going to gain. Who benefits from this? It seems like Big Pharma could possibly benefit. I'm not seeing any specific ideas around the whole idea of mental health, and to me that just it puts this in a very big gray area. And all I wanted to do is give you my perception of this, rather than the pie in the sky that everybody thinks, oh, well, these 23 executive orders are just fine. They don't violate the Constitution. But you have to use your brain and think about what's going on here. It's another form of gradualization. That's my own opinion, and we'll see if I'm right. Let's see how they begin to start classifying people as being mentally ill or not. And if that list begins to grow, just like our whole terrorist watch list of suspicious activities grew, well, hopefully it doesn't get that far. Because if it gets that far and nobody's able to have a gun and everybody stays asleep the way that they are right now, we're going to be in real big trouble soon. So, y'all take care, and I'll talk to you soon.